Hello and welcome to How I Built This Resilience Edition from NPR. I'm Guy Raz. This is, if you're not familiar with it, this is where we talk with entrepreneurs about how they're building resilience during this very challenging time. Before we get started, I just want to thank HubSpot for supporting NPR and How I Built This and supporting this series. Legacy CRM platforms have made you compromise for far too long. With HubSpot's CRM platform, you don't have to choose between enterprise tools that are powerful or easy to use because it gives you both. So your marketing, sales, and service teams can align with ease. Accelerate sales and anticipate every customer need. Finally, there is a CRM platform that helps you run better so you can grow better without complexity ever getting in the way. You can learn more at HubSpot.com. Thank you again to HubSpot. Okay, let's get to the show. In the window next to me is Sonia Gil. She is the CEO and founder of Fluenz. It's a company that offers a range of programs to help English speakers learn new languages. Now, Fluenz started out more than a decade ago with online programs. This is a digital platform. And then in 2017, they pivoted and they expanded to offer language immersion programs in places like Mexico City and Oaxaca and Barcelona. But like so much else this year, those programs had to be temporarily shut down. So Sonia has kind of repivoted and refocused Fluenz's attention back to its roots by rebuilding and strengthening the company's digital offerings. Sonia, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Before we get to questions, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or LinkedIn, you have questions for Sonia about how to build a language business. Any questions about entrepreneurship, any questions you have about immersion programs, please start sending those our way. We'd love to get your questions. Okay. So, Sonia, let's start with the founding of Fluenz. I guess you founded this like more than a decade ago, and originally the idea was this was going to be an online-only platform. Is that right?
That's right. So we launched our first product, Fluenz Mandarin, in January of 2007. So this was a while ago. This is pre-apps, pre-anything. And yeah, the idea was to have a self-learn digital program that was specifically made for English speakers, and that's the key component there, and that's really what differentiates us from everybody else. We deconstruct the language and put it back together from the point of view of somebody who's an English speaker who's learning that language. Huh. So I'm going to give you a brief example of how this works. So Sure. If you're going to learn Spanish and you come from English, the obstacles you're going to face are going to be very different than somebody who comes from Italian. They're going to learn it quicker, no doubt. You're going to have a harder time. And it seems logical, and you'd think that everything that's out there obviously takes that into account. But that's not the case, actually. Most of the programs and even books and university programs and everything else have one path of learning, and that's what it is. And so that makes it harder for us. That means our market is smaller. That also means that every time we develop a language, it's incredibly difficult. It takes resources and time and whatnot. But it also ensures that you have better results and that you feel like it's made for you because it is made for you.
Yeah.
So that's the gist of the general thing. So we started in 2007, and we started with Mandarin. Kind of like if we can teach Mandarin, we can teach anything.
Yeah.
That was kind of the premise there. And back then also.
And it was like an online program. You'd go to a website and then you would basically go through the different steps in taking the class.
Yeah. So it's online, but there was a very big element about it, and which is the premise of everything that we do. And it was about how do we bring that magic that an amazing teacher has. I'm sure you've had an experience with a great teacher that you remember. I know I have it. Like, how do we bring that to the digital space in a self-learn program? And so every one of our programs has a very strong video component, And every one of, there's one person that teaches you throughout. I'm actually the on video coach for a lot of the languages. And so every lesson starts with an introduction in English, explaining like, okay, today we're going to do this. We're going to face these obstacles. We're going to do it together. Then there's a big tutorial part of it where we compare English to whatever language you're learning. This is how we do it. There's a lot of graphics, words come in and out, like very, step by step. And then you go through a battery of workouts that are designed specifically so that you leverage what you learn and you go forward and increasing one by one. And then at the end of it, there's always a conclusion on video. And that's where we bring the cultural aspects of the language, right? So we always talk about either a particular painting or an artist or a movie or a book or a recipe, like something that ties in the language with the culture. And that was how it all started.
So I guess a couple of years ago, you decided to kind of shift a little bit into in-person immersion courses, and you launched like courses in Oaxaca and in Mexico City and in Barcelona for people to go for like a week at a time to just really immerse themselves in language. Tell me about that decision to kind of shift some of your focus in that direction.
So it was actually an idea that had been floating around for a while for us, that, we wanted to do something in person there wasn't anything out there that met our needs, what we thought was needed out there, that involved not only just great teaching and a great methodology, but also a beautiful place, go to great restaurants, like not have to think about it, right? There's a lot of immersion programs out there that, you can go to Costa Rica for a week and it's super inexpensive and you live with a family and it's cumbersome and you're kind of in a classroom with a lot of people, a lot of young people. So this was thought for like adults. I want to go somewhere where I'm comfortable, where I don't really have to think about much. I want to eat great food. I want to go to great museums. I want to hear talks about history and culture. And I just want to have like a whole experience about the language and the culture and the place that I'm visiting. And there was really nothing out there. So finally we decided to go for it and build it and start it. And a big part of that decision and why we hadn't done it before is because, again, the learning part of it is a big component. And that meant that I had to sit down and write the program. Like it's different how you learn through a screen, and the programs that we'd written were meant and written and thought of for somebody who is at home alone learning in a computer. Yeah. When you're in our immersion programs, you spend 4 hours a day, sometimes 5 hours a day. It's broken up with an instructor, one-on-one. And that's a whole different notion and a different experience. So it was kind of like I had to reckon with the fact that I had to sit down and not sleep and drink lots of coffee for a long time to write this thing, to come up with what it is. And so we did it. Basically, we just went for it.
So talk to me a little bit about what happened this year, because obviously immersion programs, you've got people going to cities around the world, and all of a sudden COVID hits and you had to shut down. And
there's no more. And we had to shut down completely, and we went to zero. So this part of the business is relatively new for us, right? So starting this part of the business was like starting a brand new company all over again. It was like going back to the roots, like bootstrapping it. How do we make it happen? How do we build it? Yeah. And that all happened in 2017. And in 2018, we started like with our first groups in Mexico City. We grew 100% plus. 2019, 2020 was going to be our big expansion year. This year is when we were opening in Barcelona and Oaxaca. And we had already, grown 100%, only selling out till June, like mid-year, right? So it was like our expansion year. Wow. And we were meant to be starting our very first group in Barcelona on March 8th. And the entire team was supposed to be moving to Barcelona on February 25. So if you remember, like now everything is kind of, but on February, we weren't sure what was happening, right?
Right.
And Barcelona closed up March 14th. So we had to make really hard decision. And at the time, our team thought we were being a little bit like we were exaggerating. Our guests, we had to pull out early, and we did in late February. We kind of just made the call and just wrote to everybody like, hi, we're not doing this. We're postponing it. We're figuring it out. And, one of our guests actually received the email of the postponement while she was on the plane to go to Barcelona. She was going early. Like, people were not happy. It was complicated. Wow. It turned out later that we made the right decision, and we were like the coronavirus whisperers because we somehow figured it out. But it was tough. I mean, we were ready to, we had 50 people going to Barcelona, opening up a full city. We had programs laid out for the whole year. We were opening up in Oaxaca in April.
Wow. We
had relationships with vendors, with hotels. We had commitments that we had already paid for, local teams. I mean,
Sonia,
March was rough.
Having to shut down the immersion programs. I mean, was there a moment where you were worried about whether your whole business would make it through this year?
Oh my God, are you kidding? Yes, I'm still worried. We're alive and we're good, but of course, yes, absolutely. Step one was just go back to the Excel sheet and just dial down everything. Like, what are we spending on that we don't need to be spending on right now? How do we get to the bare minimum to keep going? And, it was important to us to keep the entire team as much as possible. We had no idea what was going to happen, but, what can we do? And that was step one. So go to financials and just bring it all down. Then talk to everybody, all of our vendors, all of our commitments. Like, there's a lot of things that we already paid for. Like, what can we do here? Let's negotiate a lot of things we lost, a lot of things we're able to keep, like that whole bit. And then first it was crisis mode, right? So first it was just about, okay, we have all of these people booked for the whole year. We need to contact them, see what we do the best we can in terms of, returns or postponements. Like, we need to come up with a policy. And that took like a while. That was like the first couple of weeks, just kind of putting down the fire, right? Yeah. At the same time, being the psychologist and mentor and shoulder for the team. A lot of our members are quite young and great, amazing people, but they were like up in the air, like, what do we do now? We have nothing, right? So a lot of it was also that, like, talking to every single individual person in the team. Hi, we're good. We got you covered till the end of the year. What's your situation? Can you make it if we bring it down? Like, what's the deal? I wanted to know every single individual situation so that we could, like, just feel at ease for at least the coming months, so we could actually think and come together and figure something out. So that was the first few weeks. Then when the fire was kind of put down a little bit, I was in Mexico City at the time. I have a home there. I'm based there for most of the year. So I decided to kind of pack my bags and leave, and we rented a home in Colorado, far away from everything, so I could just sit down and have time to focus and come up with something new.
Wow.
It was like, okay, we kind of started a new company in 2017, and what that takes. Your listeners have heard plenty of stories of what that implies.
Yeah.
And so, like, here we are in March, we got to start a company all over again, but we got 30 days. What do we do? What's next?
So you go to Colorado after, putting out this huge fire must have been so stressful. And you go there with the idea of, like, we've got to come up with a plan. to keep our business operating through this economic crisis. So what do you come up with?
Yeah. So it was clear that the way to do it was, okay, we gotta pivot and go online with, we already had, we had the digital products, and we've never left that alone. That exists, and that goes on. But it's very different than what we do, the immersion program. And so it was like, what can we do? How do we pivot the face-to-face experiences where people definitely expect much more than just the language learning, right? It's about a cultural experience. It's about a feeling. It's about feeling taken care of. How do we translate what we have there into this, right? A screen, and this for the listeners is Zoom. So I needed time and focus. It was also, again, going back to the basics of what we do, which is the learning. Like, how do I look at the content that we have, the material, the lessons, to make them engaging and amazing through a screen with a teacher? Like, what needs to change there? And thankfully, throughout the years that we've done the in-person immersion, we had been doing some online coaching with people that had already been in the immersion to continue. So we had already a little bit of knowledge in terms of the format. We knew already the amount of time that a lesson should take. Like, we started out with, 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hour lessons, and then we went to 1 hour. But we already knew that 90 minutes is the perfect amount of time to kind of do a chapter. So we knew that. And then we knew a little bit about what the exchange is like online, right? So thankfully, I had a little bit of that knowledge, but it was about, okay, let's bring this together. That feeling that you have when you're with us is, and this is what people say, and it's very on purpose. Like, you feel that what you're thinking, somebody already knows, and it's being taken care of. And you feel like everything is detailed and there's attention to it. So step one was, all right, team, here we go. Let's put together this content. Let's see how we put it together. And it's simple things, right? So it was from getting everybody together, training, and making sure that the exchange through a screen was the correct one. Mm-hmm. It was getting the team together and making sure that the look of what you see is pleasing, is aesthetic. It looks like it's thought out. It was about, how you dress. There's some informality through these types of engagements through screens that sometimes bring a little bit less seriousness to the conversation, and we wanted to bring in the seriousness, which is what we have in the in-person experiences. So everybody has a uniform. There's a system which we have in back end where we know exactly where every student is and what they're going through. At the same time, we have a meeting every week now with this online version. So we meet every week with all of our team members. We discuss every single student. What are they going through? What are they missing? What do we need to change anything? Do we need to adapt anything? Mm-hmm. So it turned out that this online version of the immersion has been incredibly effective in terms of the learning for our guests. Yeah. Who knew? Because we can be that much more precise and we can individualize it that much more. So you had Salman Khan on this podcast. I love him. And he talked about how the best learning experiences are when you have a great teacher that identifies your gaps and then focuses on that. Yeah. And this online version of the immersion allows us much better to hone in on those gaps and fill them in and just focus on that. So that's been awesome.
How are you and I know this because I've got two kids in a French immersion school, and they're doing it remotely, and it's very hard for the school because they want the kids back in the school because it's hard to do immersion,
Yeah.
especially with kids. But this sounds like a really cool thing that you guys are doing. Tell me how like how are you getting the word out about this, like, about the offerings, and what are ways that you're trying to essentially acquire new users or get new customers?
Yeah, well, that's a tough one for being in the language learning, being in the language learning business for so long. I can tell you that the affinity isn't always there. Meaning, you happen to like Italian, and that's the language that you want to learn. But that doesn't mean that your friend wants to learn that or is willing to put in the time to learn that. And so it's really hard to hone in on the demographics. Thankfully, the way we started with the online immersion is that we have a database, right? We have all the people that have come to the immersions. We have all the people that had signed up to come in the future. And so we were able to offer this as a replacement in a way. And that got us started. So that at least, gets the momentum going a little bit. We do campaigns in Google Ads. I talk to anyone that is willing to talk to me. Just like when we started digital programs, that's exactly how we started. Same thing with the online, same thing here. And yeah, there has been some word of mouth for sure. People talk about it and rave about it, but that doesn't mean that their friend is really willing to do it. How
big is your team right now?
So we are about 20 instructors and growing. So we're actually growing, Guy.
And
I'm ready to expand the team.
You do Spanish, Mandarin, Italian. What else?
Oh, so I'm just talking about the team of teachers for the immersions. They're separate teams.
Right.
So the digital team is one world, and that we do Mandarin. That's the coolest one. I love saying we do Mandarin. I speak some Mandarin, yes. German, Spanish, Italian, French, and Portuguese. And for Spanish, we have Latin American Spanish and European Spanish. It's just a matter of accent. But that's that world. For the immersions, for now, we only do Spanish, but we definitely want to add.
This is a question from a listener who wrote in. Ernie wrote in by YouTube, asking if there are any plans for an Italian immersion class.
We get a lot of questions about Italian and French, and yes, in the future, yes. Right now, there are no on-site immersions.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, for sure.
This is a question from Chelsea Ewing Chow. Chelsea asks, do you have any plans to create a feature that enables similar students to interact with one another? That's one that we're in conversations now. So a lot of our students that are in the immersions now crave that, connection with other students, right? And right now what we're doing is we're doing live events every month. So history talks, and they're free, by the way. Everybody who's listening, come to our live events. They're amazing. We have history talks in Spanish and English so that you can practice, but also actually get the information, like cooking classes, whatever, all sorts of interests, and people come together there and are starting to mix and match. But that's something that it's in the works. Everything's in the works now. Yeah. How much does a course cost, by the way? Like if you want to sign up to learn Spanish or French on the digital platform,
So on the digital platform, there's several packages, right? You can get 1 level, you can get 3 levels, you can get 5 levels. For the whole package, it's $398, and we have, different offerings depending on the time of the year. Sometimes it's $368, but it averages between $350 and $390s.
And so, I mean, it seems like this kind of pivot that you've made with the immersion program. I mean, do you think that is going to actually impact the way you teach immersion even after we get out of this pandemic?
Oh my God, yes. The answer is a solid 100% yes. First of all, the online immersion is here to stay. I have no doubt. It's something that also had been in our minds, but if there's one thing this pandemic has accelerated and it has opened the doors toward is online education, right? You've seen it with your kids. We've seen it with everything around us. So I think people are definitely ready and willing and much more open to it. So yeah, this is here to stay. I think there will be a mix of both. So I can see how a lot of people will do an online immersion first before doing an on-site one to really get the most of the on-site one. I hear it from my students today. Absolutely. Yes, that's happening. But we'll see, right? We're figuring it out. We're growing the team at the same time. There's a lot of uncertainty. It's definitely less lucrative. I mean, it's tough. We got to look at this Excel sheet every day and make sure that are we on the right track. Like, we're still on total bootstrap mode. Like, do not spend anything that does not need to be spent on right now, because we're in iffy waters. When is it all going to open up or not open up? We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're doing exactly the right thing. I mean, a moment like this forces constraints, and within those constraints, you have to be nimble, and you have to be careful with how you spend money, and you have to be focused, and you're doing all those things.
You have to have room to maneuver. Like you have to be able to change if need be, and to do that, you need to be comfortable a little bit. Like, make sure that you have enough to go the long run, right? And change whatever changes need to be made in the long run. So I think, we're there. We're good. We're solid. We're alive. We actually see a horizon where we can grow. A new part of the business has sprung up, and that's exciting. And it's amazing for the team too. I mean, I have a really awesome set of individuals that have just put everything in, and you feel it as a student. Like, you feel the interest and the love from our teachers, and that team is growing, which I'm very excited about.
It's awesome. Sonia Gil, thank you so much, founder of Fluenz. Great having you.
Thank you. It was so fun. Thank you, Guy.
Thank you all for watching. Sorry we couldn't get to all your questions, but come back here on next week not next week. Next week we're taking the week off, I think. But we will be back the week after. Before I go, just if you don't know, I've got a new book out. Let me grab it here. Surprisingly, it's called How I Built This. It is a show for anybody who wants to think or learn about the entrepreneurial mindset, so check it out. We will be releasing some new episodes next week of the show, so make sure to check that out on your podcast too. If you're not a subscriber to How I Built This, please do go ahead and subscribe. Once again, Sonia, great having you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.